right, so we are just preparing to live stream the meeting now. See a red bar moving on up. All righty, I think we are just beginning to start. So I'm gonna add in one more person. Lovely, and I hear myself in the background already. So let's get this started. I'm so excited to be here with you all. Hello, everybody in this virtual Zoom room. I love our little Brady Bunch format. And to all of you at home as well, I just want to say welcome. On behalf of North Van Arts and all of the organizers, funders, and supporters of the North Shore Art Crawl, to all of the artists, we want to say thank you so much for participating in this year's virtual event. And to all of you at home tuning in, or to those of you who are participating from afar, we do want to let you know that North Van Arts and myself as well, because I live very close to North Van Arts offices, we operate on the Coast Salish territory of Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish people. I personally live closer to a community known as Aslaan, which I am still learning to pronounce and practicing my pronunciation of Squamish language words. But I live near that community if you know of it. And if you want to learn how to pronounce more words from the Squamish language, I do encourage you to visit the northshoreculturecompass.ca. It's an initiative of North Van Arts, and we're really grateful for the members of the Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh nations for working with us and for sharing their stories on this digital map. So it's a really great resource to check out if you haven't already. But yeah, as I come from the North Shore myself, I was born and raised here. I am joined by 5 other artists who are also participating in the North Shore Art Crawl as North Shore artists. And each of you come from different mediums. You each have different stories to share. And I know that it's not the same for everyone. That's why we want to highlight these artists here today. So without further ado, I'd like to move to introduce each of you. Chris, I'd love to start with you. You are a woodworker. Would you let us know where you are virtually tuning in from? What room of your house, per se?
I am in the spare bedroom.
Thank you, Chris. All righty. Megan, let's go to you. Megan, you are working in acrylic, and I believe your specialty is portraiture. But you're also in oil, watercolor, and mixed media. Would you let us know which room you're tuning in from? Oh, Megan, you're muted currently. Ah, there we are. So we'll just try with Janice, if you could let us know, and then Megan, will come back to you right after.
Okay. You just like an introduction then?
Oh, I was just gonna say, what room are you tuning in from?
I'm in my studio right now.
Ooh, very lovely. Very nice to see. And Megan, I believe we've got your sound back on.
Yes, hi, we're all good. I am in the home office.
Wonderful, okay. Carol, I know you are a potter as well as an artist of many different media. Would you let us know which room are you tuning in from?
I'm in the room beside my studio.
The room beside your studio. Curious. Well, thank you. And Esme, lastly, but not the least, you work in oil, watercolor, and acrylic. And where are you tuning in from?
I'm in my daughter's former bedroom, which is now my studio.
Lovely to hear. I'm very fascinated by all of these stories of studios and how different folks work out where they create their artwork. I myself am a performance artist, as I let you know, but we're not going to be talking about how the pandemic has affected performance artists or stage artists, as they say sometimes, because this event and North Van Arts traditionally has had many visual artists in our community. So we do want to highlight those stories as well, because I know how performance artists are dealing with the pandemic, but I want to hear from you all about how you're dealing with the pandemic, because as Janice, you said something in an Instagram post that I thought was very curious, that artists are used to being alone at times. Would you mind talking a little bit more about how you feel perhaps visual artists might be more used to being alone, and what that's been like for you over the last year?
Sure. Yeah, I guess it would probably be more visual artists that enjoy being alone as opposed to performance artists. I tend to, I'm a bit of a extroverted introvert, I guess you could call me. So I really enjoy my studio time. And I felt that one of the, if you can call it a silver lining of the pandemic, was a lot of uninterrupted studio time. And I'm so fortunate to have a studio here on the North Shore where I can go and it's safe. And yeah, I felt that I was really fortunate, because it was my sanity for a lot of those months, just to be able to come in here and make art.
Do you find in your process, do you need that alone time to really sort out your thoughts? And has that helped you? Because I know with the chaos of not only the US election, as well as the pandemic and many other things, do you find solace in that? Or is that your kind of safe place?
It is my safe place. It was kind of a crazy year because there was so much happening politically with the US election, and obviously COVID, and then Black Lives Matter. And so I sort of went through phases between not listening to any news and just being quiet or listening to music, to going listening to podcasts, to becoming a news junkie again. So I just felt like I had this constant change all the time. But when I really needed to just unwind, I would just put music on. That's how I normally work, is just with music in my studio.
And let's move on to Esme. I'm curious, how have you been dealing with the pandemic in the last year, specifically when you're making art? Where do you find your safe place?
I'm a bit like Janice, where, well, I guess maybe half and half. I like to be alone, and then also I'm also an extrovert. So my safe place surprised me, because I thought I would be going to my studio and painting hours on end just to find that solace or quiet. But it was actually in the garden that I found that. So as a result, last year, my garden was not as weedy as usual, and there were beautiful flowers. But I think part of that is because I do floral paintings as well. And it's almost like a part of composing pictures when I plant things in the garden, and then I take the photographs, and then I like to play with them in my watercolors.
I did want to highlight your florals, Esme, because I love that you called them sassy florals. I think that's a brilliant way to describe your artwork. So thank you. And
Thank you.
Carol, would you let us know a little bit about where your safe space to create has been in the last year?
Well, it's in my studio, but and it's odd, but given all the free time, like now you've got sort of more dedicated time, I'm having a hard time getting in there. I don't know why. I guess it's just, yeah, I'm just feeling there's almost not a, I don't want to say nothing to work for, not work towards, but I think I need an end game. I found that out. I need that end. I need something to work towards. That seems to really help me. So I was having a hard time getting started. And then, but really having to and I was really surprised with that because it's just really is my happy place. And then why can't I do that? It's sort of a very, very strange, but I know other artists have felt the same way. So it's, through, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and things, and there's a lot of people say the same thing. So it's just been different that way. Yeah.
I mean, I bet it's an odd contrast that, you talk to your friends who are perhaps not artists and you say, I feel so many different things and I would just want to go and have that peaceful time, but I can't.
Exactly. Yeah.
I hear you on that.
Yeah.
Chris, would you let us know a little bit about where you find the space to create?
Yeah, so I've got workshop in the garage, and this whole thing has meant that I've got a lot more time to actually be there, which is nice because normally there's so much going on. I sometimes struggle to find the time to get in there, and it's been, as far as that goes, it's been great just to have that extra time in the shop and be able to explore different ideas and finish off some of the stuff that I started but never seemed to get around to.
Do you share that garage with anyone else? Any other cars?
Oh, there's no room for cars in there.
Yeah. That's the dream studio, is all to yourself, one big room for you. And for wood turning, you would need a lot more space, I imagine, to work and to create. Is that right?
Yeah, it does take a bit of space. I mean, if I just had my wood turning stuff, it would be a lot less, but I'm also set up to do some flat work stuff. So that takes up even more of the space. And then, you have to allow for room for gardening tools and bikes and all the other stuff that,
Good to know. But yeah, it's easy for me to say because poetry can be created anywhere. So I really don't have any materials or spaces where I would go to create that. But Megan, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you've been creating in the last year?
Well, I have a lovely studio, and it is a separate building even from my house. It's in my backyard, and I love it. I'm so happy there. But I found with the pandemic, like many of the other panelists have mentioned, I lost all desire to make art. And I love being by myself. I'm not an extrovert. All the things that I like to do are alone. I like to watch movies and read books and paint. And the pandemic just shut it down. And I did a deep dive into the internet, learned some new words like doom scrolling, which was like the most amazing word ever. That's exactly what I was doing. And it took a few months actually to slowly come out of that and start feeling like I felt like painting again. It seemed irrelevant for a long time because a lot of my paintings are of happy people, and I just didn't feel like painting happy people. It seemed inappropriate. But I think as humans, we adapt, and the world didn't fall to pieces, and the catastrophes that I had been preparing for didn't seem to happen. We just adjusted and moved on, and so did I. And slowly and slowly it started coming back, and now I'm in there every day, all day again.
So you feel you found your groove again?
Yeah, it's different. It's strange. I think a painting is communicating, right? For me, it's a visual form of communicating, and now I'm not communicating to anyone, just preparing things that maybe someday will communicate to people. So it's different.
Would you share with everyone, for those that might not know, what is doom scrolling?
Doom scrolling is the best word. So you take your phone and you go on Twitter and you start scrolling through one piece of bad news to the next, or Google News or The Guardian. That was a good one. So you basically just scroll through one piece of worrying news after another. not
Good.
healthy.
Yeah, good to highlight for everyone out there. If you are doom scrolling, I'm our social media manager for North Van Arts. I work with the marketing team here, and I definitely want to encourage each of you, do not scroll endlessly through your social media. Go out and, talk to people with masks on, with distance, if you need more connections, but don't be glued to your phone. Very good lesson. So I do want to move back to you, Janice, and ask about your art business with regard to your studio as well. Because I know in past years, you'd have a lot of visitors in that hub, that studio hub that we call the Marine, Norgate, and Pemberton Heights kind of neighborhood.
Yeah.
Would you share a little bit about your experience there and what your business has been like?
Sure. Well, my studio is in Welsh Street Studios, which is a purpose-built building above Martin Marine, and it's down at the bottom of Pemberton. And there's 9 artists in our building, and we're very fortunate in that we all have our own separate buildings like they're little flats, I suppose, with windows and doors and things like this. So it's been very safe. As a group, we often have events, we have shows. We had a really successful show the year before the pandemic called Small Wonders, and it was just amazing. It was so much fun. And we participate in the crawl every year, so we have literally hundreds of people coming through. So it was a bit of a shock, and we just all adjusted, and some of the artists in our building are less comfortable with having people in for studio appointments. I have been having people in throughout the crawl and actually throughout the pandemic, people in for studio appointments. They make an appointment, see me on the weekend, and my studio is large enough that I feel completely comfortable if we're wearing a mask and things like that. So and then we also have First Saturdays, which is it's a Vancouver and North Vancouver event. And every first Saturday of the month, we have open studios. So if you see the little red flag outside, that means that we invite visitors in, and not everybody is here, but most of us have our doors open and we're just working, and you're welcome to come in with a mask on and just watch us work or ask questions. And yeah. So we've adjusted, we've pivoted.
Yeah, it's a shame that artists have to pivot in these ways, but ultimately we are creative people, and so I think you've done a really great work over with everybody at Welsh Street Studios. I'm always such a fan of the artists in that cluster neighborhood hub. I think it's amazing that North Van has that space for artists. Esme, would you let us know a little bit about how your art business has been impacted over the last year?
As far as exhibits go, it's been pretty lonely. As we know, galleries have either been closed or not so well attended, so we're not as likely to plan exhibits. The other thing is collaborating with other artists and meeting with clients in person didn't happen for a while. But I think just like you said, artists are creative, and the galleries, for example, community galleries or international art galleries, they've been very good at pivoting and finding a way to deliver the exhibits online, like North Van Arts, for example. Who can imagine that a crawl can be online? So then my attention went from trying to do physical exhibits to making sure that I can put in artwork in these other venues that are online.
And have you felt like there are enough opportunities, or what have you felt like with regard to how much opportunity there is for exhibiting artists?
I think that there are enough opportunities if you look. So I like watercolors. I like doing watercolors as well as oils and acrylics. I joined the International Watercolor Society, and they've managed to make up a 3D gallery as well as a presentation of the artworks via flipbook. So that's only one of them. And then, of course, I'm also a member of the Federation of Canadian Artists, and they've also done quite a bit of marketing online. And they were shut down for a while, but they came back strong. I think that they were making quite a bit of sales and getting a lot of attention from the artists as well as clients. So for me, it hasn't really been a problem. I'm also part of society in New York, and they've also gone online for exhibiting the artworks. I feel like it's been kind of sad and difficult for physical gallery, but it's also been a good opportunity to go international. So a lot of, like, for example, this can be viewed internationally, and the online galleries can be viewed internationally. So as long as the venues or the associations can get enough help, grants, funding, whatever that we need, so that we can continue to present this way, I think that we will probably be able to do a hybrid of physical and online exhibiting.
Yeah, you make a great point there that the tech can be expensive and it can be challenging for sure to get everybody trained up on these sorts of things. Not only the arts administrators, but the artists as well, to make sure that everyone can participate and we're making ourselves more accessible. Carol.
Yes, definitely. Oh, sorry. Okay.
It's okay. Would you want to finish your thought, Esme, and then we'll move on to you, Carol?
Okay.
I was going to say, sorry, Carol. I was going
Okay.
to say that we need to get I felt that I needed to apply for grants now so that I can continue to educate myself in this new way of doing things. That was it.
And Carol, over the last year, what's your business been like?
Well, I guess like everyone else, it's like the craft fairs and the galleries can only do what they can do, and they've done a really good job of trying to make it work. So I've kind of shifted more to online, and that's worked out well. I have a Square shop where people can it's kind of good for communicating with people, and they can come and pick things or look at things and pick things up. And outside, I've got space to do that outside, so I can do the distance thing, which is good. And I've tried to do. I have a website, and I tried to keep up with be more diligent about that, and because it always seems to be the last thing that I do is anything to kind of promote myself. So that's been, you have to force myself to do that. And then I tried also doing a newsletter, which I was doing once a month, just trying to studio life and that kind of thing, and what podcasts I've been listening to and sort of light stuff like that, which was successful, which is good. So yeah, it's just sort of definitely slower, without the art crawl the way it is, or was rather. So,
yes,
but still,
it's
yeah, and it will be again. Yeah. So yeah, no, I'm kind of missing that kind of thing, but it sort of makes you look at things differently, like to different ways to promote yourself, whether it is in the social media or any other kind of platforms that there are. So yeah, so that's sort of.
So typically at craft fairs or artisan fairs where there are a lot of 3D materials sold, or and 2D, I guess, as well, in all sorts of places, would you say that's definitely been where you feel your business is lacking the most in those kinds of opportunities?
Yes, yeah, because they were yes, because I at the I guess it's the year before last now. I was in quite a few of the craft fairs in the different places, so it was a lot of revenue lost basically. So and the online stuff just hasn't it hasn't picked up that much, you know, to kind of cover that, where you've got you can have like a venue where everybody comes and all that. So but it's yeah, you just learned to promote yourself differently. So that's been good too, to kind of brush up on those skills.
I mean, I know from having gone to craft fairs, I love seeing a variety of artisans in that same space. And I always remember that I am a person who can very easily be convinced to buy something. But I imagine for you, it's a lot easier to convince people when they're walking through the fair or visiting your studio, and you can have conversations with them. Whereas online, you don't always know who is currently viewing your website. And you don't always have the opportunity to have those same conversations with them. So
exactly, yeah.
Chris, let's go to you and ask, how have you been dealing with the business side of things over the last year of this pandemic?
Yeah, so I would say, like Carol, I was heavily weighted towards the craft fairs and artisan markets and stuff like that. And now it's probably a year and a half since I did any of those. So I've been a little more focused on, I've had an Etsy site for a long time now, but tended to be neglected, and it's gotten a lot more attention in the last year. And that's made up some ground there. I did find with stores and galleries and stuff, I've usually one at a time for me, and sometimes not at all. But I did make a point of getting into one in Vancouver. Overall, I would say it's a lot more work for a lot less sales.
Interesting. We'll get to the topic of marketing your art versus creating your art, because I do want to hear all of you speak about, what percentages and what times you're giving yourself to do these different things, because from what I'm hearing, it definitely sounds like there's more work needed and more labor during the course of the pandemic, because there's also learning curves to consider and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, Megan, we'll just finish off with you.
Sure. I don't tend to use the word business so much for my own practice. I use the word practice. I'm an oil painter, not an acrylic painter. And I'm a very slow painter. So doing a realistic portrait in oil takes a long time. So I'm not very productive. I have definitely noticed the lack of physical space. I have found quite a few opportunities to participate in group shows online, and I've really appreciated that. I mean, the North Van Arts has been great for that. The West Van Community Arts Council has been great, the Federation, and I have expanded a bit. I've entered and been accepted into an international show and through another group in Ottawa. So that has expanded my reach. But it's quite funny with these shows because you send it off, it gets in, and then that's that. You don't know anything about what happened. Did anybody see it? Did anybody like it? There's not a lot of feedback. So that's kind of strange. All of the energy goes into entering and to being accepted, and that's great. And then it's kind of over. A bit odd. But the other thing that I found that really changed this year, and happily so for me, is that I got quite a few commissions. So I don't know if that's a result of other people being at home or other people thinking about what they might do with their desires to have something nice and new. But I pretty steadily had one commission after another. So that kept me busy and motivated. That was great.
Mm.
Yeah.
So next, I wanted to bring up a conversation that is different for everyone. So answer it how you will, because photographing your artwork and or digitizing it, getting a videographer, all these sorts of things. I want to ask you just quickly, so you'll have about a minute or less to respond with this, of how do each of you photograph your artwork? So do you photograph it yourself? Do you hire a photographer? Is that something you'd recommend for others? What's your sort of process for that? And we'll start with you, Janice.
I photograph my own work. I make sure that I have proper lighting for the white balance, because I like the white balance to be consistent in all my photos. But I do hire a professional photographer to come in and take pictures of me working, and pictures pictures that I post on my website. Obviously, I can't take photographs of myself, and I didn't even do selfies until the pandemic started. I finally had to get comfortable
Really?
with pictures of myself. But I do have someone, Lee Halliday. She's a wonderful photographer, and just get a little plug for Lee. And she's been really great. She comes in and just sort of walks around, takes pictures of me working, and just some general photographs. But my work itself, I am pretty consistent. I always have it in the same place with the same light. Use my DSLR, and that way all my whites are always consistent.
Nice. And I imagine you likely edit as well on your own.
I do, yes.
Esme.
I am the same. I take my own photos, or I take photographs of my images or my artwork, and I edit them as well. And I found I was doing that even before the pandemic, and it seemed to work okay. I don't really like photos of myself, and I'm slowly getting to understand that we need this for, I think people like to see your process, and they like to see you actually doing it. So I've been getting my husband or whoever's around to take the photographs, and usually that's a lot of takes because I'm really picky. Everything looks bad, not their fault. But yeah, I think it's a good idea to get someone and take a few photos, depending on what you're working on. So maybe I might go that professional photographer route at some point.
And Carol.
Yeah, I'm the same. I take all of my pictures myself, and I am able to edit them too. I have Photoshop and Illustrator and that kind of thing, so I'm able to do that. But I did have actually it was from a few years ago with the art crawl, a photographer came by. Darren, I can't think of his last name. Yeah.
Darren.
Anyway, those pictures have been great because it's again the sort of while I'm working kind of thing, and just sort of different getting those, which is hard to get of yourself. I don't want to call them action shots because they're not really action shots, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
It's a good term.
Yeah. So they've been really useful. So I've used them a lot in different things. So so that's what I do.
Interesting. So you do the photography of your artwork all on your own.
Yeah.
And I know I can show everyone, this is Carol's hands, you can see. Famous from the art crawl. Now we finally have a face to the hands that you can literally see that when she's, rolling out clay, you can't take a photo or a selfie as easily, right? Unless it's a finished product. But those action shots, like you said, have you
really useful?
Yeah, they're great for your website, for your social, and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So have you been taking more of those in the last year?
A little bit, sort of a few more kind of, I guess, in process shots, or try to do that. Again, I've got a little, even I've taken quite a few with my phone, which works well too. But with those ones, I've got a small tripod
Hmm.
and a remote control shutter release, so that is helpful. But it's still awkward. So it's definitely, I would recommend having a photographer come in and do that, because it's yeah, well worth it. Yeah.
Good to know. And Chris, let me just unmute you here.
Oh, okay.
What's your process like for digitally capturing your artwork?
Yeah, so I do it myself as well. If I'm taking pictures of something that's finished, I've got, the photo booth set up with lighting and tripod and DSLR camera and that stuff. For social media, stuff like that, quite often I'll just take pictures with my phone of something that, it's maybe a little bit interesting or something that I could post online. Just to maintain that presence, have something out there.
And do you go selfie style more often?
Well, I prefer to take pictures of the work.
Not
There's
yourself.
very few pictures of myself.
Good to know. That's a different perspective, totally valid. But so it sounds like you would not have as many photos of yourself, the artist behind the artwork, right?
Yeah, very, very rarely will I put a picture of myself out there. I guess there's one or two lately.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about that. Could you share a bit about why and how sort of you maintain that slight anonymity a little bit?
I don't know. Well, no, I feel like, no, probably if it wasn't for having to get this stuff out there, I would have a lot less social media. So it's the whole point of it to me. No, I find the work more interesting than myself. And it's kind of showing what I'm interested in rather than showing myself. I don't know.
Yeah, good to hear. Thank you. Because yeah, I think it is interesting how if you're an actor, you have an agent who sends you to all this stuff, and your agent kind of does your marketing for you, or your publicist if you're really that rich of an actor. But for you as artists, I'm curious to know how that differs for you, that you kind of have to be your own art dealer at a time, and your own everything all at once. So Megan, we'll just go to you and then move on to our next question here.
Sure. So mine is actually a pretty easy answer because I just take pictures of my paintings with my phone. I don't even edit them very much. I take a whole bunch of photos and try to choose the one that is the best. I did buy my phone specifically because it has a really good camera. I have the latest, well, not the latest, I think it's an 11, but the iPhone 11, which has got a really good camera, and it actually gets the colors right better than anything else I've tried. So all I do really is crop them, and that's it. Very simple. It's not very easy. Oil paint is very shiny, very difficult to photograph, especially if it's dark. The painting is dark. So I struggle with that, but usually I manage to get something that's good enough.
Good to hear that there's definitely a variety of ways to go about it, but certainly I do want to ask you as well, have you taken more or less photos of yourself as in your studio space or working on the art?
None. Basically none. There's only my husband around. He's not crazy about taking photographs. He did take one of me because I asked him to for the art crawl. Otherwise, I don't have any. And my process shots, oil painting portraits, is pretty terrible looking until you get towards the end, right? So I don't want anybody to see the in-between parts because they might have a little panic attack. So yeah, I mean, the whole process.
Well,
I know
especially
that
if it's a
important,
commission.
right? I know that it's important for people to see the artist behind the work. I'm aware of that problem, but I haven't actually found a solution for it yet.
Well, Banksy still hasn't either, so you're good. Don't worry. Alrighty, so next I did want to ask about fans, followers, collectors, or supporters. I refer to them as your audience just because I'm a theater artist, so that's what makes the most sense to me. But also as a social media manager, that's a similar word we use, is that your audience online is similar to your audience, just as though you're walking into a theater. So for each of you, I wanted to ask about how you've been growing and or maintaining your audience over the last year, whether that's digital or, you know, classic sort of ways of mail outs. What sort of things have you been up to, Janice?
Well, I've certainly used social media as a tool much more so than I ever did before. And it's actually worked out quite well for me. I have a newsletter as well that I send out to people like past collectors and people who sign on to my website. And I find that social media has been really good to me. I've been able to sell work internationally, whereas and this is all during this past year, like I've, you know, the UK, Germany, Italy, Lebanon, yeah, places that normally nobody would ever have found me. So in some ways, yeah, it's been good. And I just continue just to, you know, post something on social media 2 or 3 times a week. And I have a lot of artists who follow me. And so I think there's that sort of a repertoire there. But I find that artists actually, is that me doing that sound? I don't know. It's coming from.
Like that. Maybe Megan, I saw the screen flash into yellow.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Anyways, yeah, so yeah, I've social media, newsletter, website, and then just sort of group shows. I've actually had I've been fortunate enough to have, I had a couple exhibitions. I have an exhibition at the Gallery George in East Van right now. I have some paintings out at CF Interiors, and then I had a show earlier. So I'm getting work out there, and it's online. It's sort of a real hybrid of just trying to do what you can. Because I think art is always better seen in person, but you do what you can. Take good pictures.
Agreed. That art is always better in person, whether it's performance or a visual art. It's, yeah, I think part of what makes us human. So right on there. Esme, would you share a little bit about what sort of things do you do to grow or to maintain your audience?
Just adding a little bit more of a personal way of doing things in social media. So for example, going out and posting about going out and taking photographs of the cherry blossoms, or my gardening journey. People like that, and I enjoy sharing it. And also sharing more of my works in progress, and stories behind the works that I do seems to engage the audience in either looking at the work or in ordering commissions or that kind of thing. The website and Instagram have been invaluable in that when people contact me and say, hey, I'm interested in you doing something for me and you painting something for me, then I ask them to look at the Instagram or at the website, and then they can tell me which of the artworks do they like. What kind of colors do they like? What does that particular picture make you feel? So it's a tool that you can use, not in person. I mean, you don't have to be in person to do it. It's been very helpful.
Hmm. So it sounds like, had you been touring a guest at the crawl in person, you might show them your artwork, but you would also show them your garden because that's one of your inspirations. That the same thing on social media, you would put in a few photos of your garden as inspiration as well as your artwork.
Yeah, I guess that's a great way to look at it.
A mix.
I can tell the story behind a painting on social media, same as I would be able to tell a person. Of course, there's not that immediate feedback, but it's better than nothing, right?
Hmm. Interesting. And Carol, we'll ask you.
Yeah, I've got to get back to that, the newsletter. I've kind of been slacking with that. I think I might, because it was really successful to kind of tell a bit of your story, of what you're working on, and like say where your inspiration comes from, and sharing photos like that. So I think I might kind of, well, I'll do it. I'll do that newsletter again. And then, but I was doing it monthly, and perhaps that might have been a bit lofty. I might maybe go quarterly or something like that. But and then like posting more too, like just people just like to see little glimpses of what you're doing and your inspiration. So that's something I'll have to kind of get back into doing more.
I love that you said you were sharing different podcasts you were listening to.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you ever say like, listen with me while I'm creating artwork?
No, I haven't. I never didn't think of that. That's a good idea. Yeah. So
no, I'm just curious because yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can connect with your audience now. But yeah, you were saying?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was actually, people like that when you say, because there are a lot of really good artist podcasts out there, and different ones about why people collect and what they collect and that kind of thing, which is really interesting. So, but yeah, that's a good idea to kind of another avenue. You know, you have to kind of broaden yourself a little bit to besides the Instagram and the Facebook and the all that, which are great because that's really kind of a real visual way to show your stuff. So but any other kind of ways to do it is good too. So that's yeah, I have to give that a try.
Yeah. Well, I ask because I know a lot of musicians, and we will be talking with more musicians in North Van Arts' next upcoming event, Art in the Garden, which will also be a transformed event. That one, we will talk with some more musicians, but it's something I've heard a lot of them do where they say, listen to this playlist with me. And so they interact with their followers on Spotify as though Spotify is its own social media, which I didn't think of for artists as well, visual artists, that you could do something like that. So I look forward to seeing your next newsletter podcast recommendation. Thank you. Chris, what sorts of things do you do to build your collector network or your followers?
Yeah, I'm not sure how effective I am at it, but mostly just trying to post stuff regularly, and stuff that I find interesting. You know, like lately I got a pile of cherry wood from a local tree that I was all excited about. I was like, look what I found. And then, a couple pieces, working on a couple pieces sort of get it to a stage where you can start to see what it's going to be, and there's some interesting feature, and it's like, have a look at this, and so posting those things on media, and then always the end product at the finish.
And do you find you use social media more as a space where you can sort of try out different things that you wouldn't necessarily put on your website?
Oh, well, the website is kind of neglected. There's so many different things. It's hard to keep up with all of it. And yeah, it's been a while since I did much on the website itself. I've been more on the social media, trying to spruce up my Etsy site, make that look better, add listings there.
Yeah, Etsy is one of those that's both a website and a social media, that it's like can be hard to balance each of these and all at the same time as well. Megan, we'll lastly hear from you.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not very good at marketing. I'm kind of terrible at marketing. I really don't like marketing. I would really rather go back 100 years and just have like a gallery agent or something. But I know it's a fact of life. This is what we have to do now. I can't say that the pandemic has been good for me in any way. I have this very slowly creeping augmentation of followers. It doesn't go very fast. Like Janice was saying, I think it's kind of a closed loop because everybody that I follow is an artist and most of the people that follow me are artists. So I'm not really sure about my reach. I like it because I like it seeing what other artists are doing, but yeah, it's not my forte.
So yeah, for you, that's a great segue into our next topic, because for you, it sounds like marketing is the last thing you want to be doing when you're wanting to create, and especially when you're inspired to create, because those moments can be so precious during this pandemic. Could you let us know what percentage do you spend time creating your artwork versus marketing your artwork, whatever those mean to you?
Probably, I don't even know if it would make a percentage. I mean, I spend some time fretting about it. So maybe 5% if we count the fretting time. But yeah, not very much. There's quite a bit of time that goes into photographing and submitting. That's quite a bit of time, but yeah, the marketing, I just take a photo from time to time, put it on Instagram. That's about as far as it goes. So yeah, very little.
And Janice, what's your percentage like?
Well, in terms of creating art and then promoting art, does that include the photography and
I would say so, a little bit. It's it's part of the preparation of your artwork for the digital world. So I think what I'm asking is about the time spent on the actual, the art piece, the finished product. Okay, I've got every last line done. And then you take it away for exhibitions and social media, your website, that sort of thing.
I think realistically, it's probably half and half when I think about, the work that needs to be done, and then entering the shows, photographing, wiring, framing, posting on social media. It's a big job. And, as an artist, you're wearing a lot. You're not just wearing your art beret, you're wearing your marketing cap, and you're wearing, and I have a business in addition to my art as well. So I find that I have to be quite disciplined. This is either going to be an art day or it's going to be a design day. And I have to be really disciplined about my hours. So, when I go into the studio, I just paint. And then the next day I might be working from my home office, and I might spend a couple hours doing some marketing for my art business. And then the rest of my day is about my design business. So it's, wearing a lot of different hats.
Yeah. Do you find
but yeah, it takes it's a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort for sure.
And strong discipline too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I like that you separate the days so that you can have, a full day to just focus on the creation part of it. And then another day is kind of your admin day or an office day.
I found that I had to do that because I was sharing a studio with Nikki, Nikki Morgan.
Yeah.
And we had, so she was in studio and I was in studio, and we had sort of shared on and off days, and didn't always work out for my business, but I was just like, I had to go in there, and I might only have 4 hours to paint, and it didn't always work out creatively. I might not have even been in the headspace to do it. So I find that I need a day, and sometimes even if I don't feel like painting, I will come around once I get into the space. I might just clean up, and then actually I don't clean up very often, but I'm I am the messiest painter here.
That's a challenge.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
they're a little embarrassed about me. Whenever we have an open house, it's like, are you gonna clean up? Yes.
Oh.
I know.
Yes. That's where some of your time spent creating or marketing might be going to next.
Exactly. Yeah. I always clean up before an open studio, but
Yes. Good PSA for next time.
yes.
Esme, would you let us know what's your percentage like, and how do you find that balance?
I think 1/3 of the time that I spend doing art per se would be the marketing or social media aspect, because you have to not only take the photos and decide which one, or take photos of works in progress, you also have to think of how to present it, how to say it. I spend time on that. And otherwise, what do you call spending actual creating your artwork? Does that include ruminating, daydreaming, composing by just looking? Because I also do a lot of that until I actually get to either the canvas or the paper.
Yeah, I would say, especially if you're a painter, until the paint dries. That would be the moment that it's finally finished, is the paint's dried and you can't touch it anymore. So you feel like it's about 2/3 in the creating and 1/3 in the businessy kind of side of it. And
Yeah,
Carol,
I
yeah, you could share more if you'd like.
oh, that's okay. Go ahead, Carol.
So Carol, what has the balance been like for you? What kind of percentage would you give or estimate?
I'd probably say 30% I do with the kind of marketing and admin stuff, and then 70% is the creating. So it probably should be more, but it's a start. So yeah, that's it. And kind of, I try to do this to have days where I do different things, and or when I wanting to do something like the any social media posts and things like that, to try to have a specific sort of time or day that I do that, and that helps. Yeah.
So you do the same as Janice, trying to
Try to block it out basically, so that you can kind of know what needs to be done, and then you can have a sort of dedicated sort of creating time, which is good. So sometimes that gets sort of put aside more often than the other admin stuff. So you don't want, like, you let things get in the way of your creating time more than you do the other admin stuff. So I try not to do that, like really have a set dedicated time that I'm in the studio and working. So yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And Chris, we'll finish off with your answer. What percentage would you give yourself?
I'm not sure I'm consistent enough to really be able to say that accurately.
Totally fair.
I'm pretty heavily weighted towards my creating time, my time in the shop. Generally, I'll try to take a few pictures and then try to put them out on social media later once I'm done for the day or taking a break. But for the sort of the heavy lifting of actually taking final good quality pictures and creating listings for Etsy and that sort of stuff, you do have to set aside a time or a day for it and kind of be focused on that. And for me, I kind of I let things slip for days or weeks or months, and then do a whole bunch all at once and catch up, and then it's kind of the same, catch up and then let it drag again.
Hmm.
Yeah, for me,
Interesting. Yeah.
I much
Well,
prefer being in the shop.
yeah, absolutely. And that's what I wanted to talk about next, because this issue is so common for so many artists that they, especially in the pandemic, are struggling with how to manage all of this time. Not saying that they can't manage it, but that there's just no time to do it all and to do everything. Especially for artists who have family living with them. Your family might be at home more often, and so there's just less time to have that kind of solo space to work and create and ruminate, like Esme was saying, on your artwork, and to think about what you want it to be. So if we could just ask, I just want to ask each of you to raise your hands if you have ever had, let's call this a gallery agent, someone who does the business for you. No. Okay. Have any of you? Pardon?
I wish.
Yeah, that would be nice.
That would be nice.
Sign me up.
I wish for you too. That yes, it seems like the management of your art business is really up to the independent artists, which I think is a shame, because musicians, there are so many different programs you can go to, including one on the North Shore with CapU. I believe it's entertainment management. They could correct me if I'm wrong on that, but for visual artists specifically, I'd also like to know how many of you would say you have collectors, people who buy from you regularly.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm.
Alrighty. And my last question for you, I know we're just over 8 p.m., so I'm going to check in with our YouTube and check out some questions if we've got some. But my last question is about funds and funding and finding the finances for your art. So I heard a little bit from you, Esme, on this, but I want to start with Janice on this one. As I know, and I've seen a video that you made for the Fund for the Arts on the North Shore fans. They're a lovely organization that serves North Shore artists, and you were one of their grant recipients for 2020. Would you let us know a little bit more about that experience, and as well other grants you find yourself applying to or looking for?
That is the only grant that I've ever applied for and received. I was very grateful to have it. Yeah, I really have not gone down the grant path. I'm pretty self-financed. I have a budget, what I need to pay, for my studio rent and my supplies. And I'm hoping that at some point I can transition to full-time artist. But at this point, I'm still maintaining another job to just to pay the bills. But the art thing is starting to really take off. So yeah, just have to keep making paintings, keep producing work. Because I think people really want art these days. I think the pandemic has really, I don't know, I think society has really made a connection to art. I think because they're at home and they're seeing their blank walls. I've noticed that my design work is going nuts too, because people want to renovate and redecorate. And it's a little ironic because artists are struggling to get their art out there. And it seems like there's people clamoring for it. So I think it's just a matter of us catching up to the demand and finding new ways to market ourselves.
Bridging that gap.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you. Megan, I know you said you don't spend a ton of time on the admin side of things, but have you been looking at any grants, or how have you found ways to finance your art business?
Well, maybe the reason that I don't spend so much time on it is because I'm lucky enough that I don't have to. I'm not trying to make a living out of my art. In fact, I haven't been doing it for very long. I've been painting, I'd say, full time for maybe 4 years. So, and when I can enter a show, when I can sell a painting, when I can get a commission, I'm thrilled. But it's not something that I need to do to survive. So it hasn't even occurred to me to look for a grant. I'm just trying to get into shows. I like people to see my paintings if I can, and that's where I put my energy. So I'm lucky
Good
that
to
way.
know.
Yeah.
Thank you. Esme, we'll move on to you.
Well, I'm also self-financed, but I've been considering applying for grants for a while, and I think the need is large enough for me that I would like to try it. What's kept me away was it seems really daunting, all of the questions, and you have to, like, for example, how much time do you spend marketing and how much time do you spend creating art? Like, you seem to have to be so exact and have all of these figures put in there. So I've shied away from that. I hadn't really needed to. But now I want to explore e-commerce. So I'd like to know how to be or be able to hire somebody to so that I can sell through my website as opposed to going through other venues. I can still go through the other venues, but I thought I would like to try that part, partly to educate myself in another aspect of art making or art marketing.
Hmm. And Carol, have you applied for any grants for your artwork, or how do you find the finance side of things to really keep your business going?
It's I haven't applied for a grant, but I do have I have another job too, so that's kind of I haven't been able to let that go yet, but it will soon, hopefully. So yeah, but it's kind of self-financed, but I know it is daunting to do all that, well, the forms and everything, but you know, if things are, would probably be worth it because then it would make it can kind of open up a lot of different things that you could try and do if you know you were able to get a grant like that. You know, just to maybe try a different art avenue would be good. So I think it's something to look into for sure.
And because you do such a wide variety of mediums, would you recommend other artists try out different forms or practices?
Well, I think that's just my personality. I like that. I like the do a lot of different things where I know as other people just like to be really focused on one thing. But I find the different mediums sort of intertwine in a lot of ways somehow. So I just like that. I like doing a lot of different things. So I guess it's just really depends on your personality and what you enjoy doing, really. Yeah.
Good to hear. And Chris, we'll go to you.
Sure. Yeah, I'm pretty much self-financed like the rest. I've got another job, which is, you know, how I support myself and pay the bills. So, you know, when I sell something, usually it helps cover the costs in the workshop and all the other stuff that goes along with it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not a huge amount extra.
Yeah, I hear that. It's definitely, I think, a problem that not enough artists, especially artists who, for them, it's their goal to be 100% working from their art, are not able to yet. And one point I find interesting is that I believe it was February of 2020. I remember, like, I shouted at the top of my lungs once the BC Arts Council finally had online applications available and they announced they're finally digitizing. I think about moments like that often, how Canada Council went through something similar, how accessible grants are to artists and whether or not they know about the various opportunities that might be out there. Because yeah, they are changing now, and it's certainly something to watch. I don't have too much to say about it, but I do know BC Arts Council and Canada Arts Council are great places to check out if you are applying for the first time. They also have some staff available who can help you talk you through some of these things. And fans as well. The Fund for the Arts on the North Shore is a local granting organization for artists from the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh Nation, and North Vancouver, West Vancouver, really across the North Shore. So there are many different kinds of opportunities out there, but certainly just like on social media, it can be hard to find all of them at once and to be successful in all of them at once as well. So good to hear. So my last question, I wanted to save more for YouTube, but I don't think we have any questions yet on our YouTube. So we will have to encourage each of them to comment on this video below when you're watching. So another fun way you can interact is by commenting on this YouTube video with any questions for the artists. And then we will send those questions out to the artists, or each of you. You're welcome to be, you're welcome to comment yourself if you have YouTube accounts and are active, but otherwise we will make sure to send you each of those. So as we're about 8:15, I just wanted to lastly ask, what are your tips for other artists out there, artists who may be listening or who may be watching later on YouTube and all sorts of various media? What are your tips for them to plan out their own schedules and to discipline themselves and inspire themselves to do the work? To whether it's creating, whether it's marketing, what is your advice to them to inspire them to complete their work and to continue their artwork? And I'll give you a little bit to think about this, and I will ask Carol first, as I think you've got some good inspiration in your family, but I'll let you share.
Well, I think it's giving yourself this allotted time to do something. Like like a lot of people have to have another job to do something, but if you've got almost like if you're registered for a night class that you go on Wednesdays or Thursdays from 7 till 9, do that. Like set yourself a time that you are going to work. Like that's what you're going in there for, and don't let anything else come in the way of that. And then then you can gradually work if you can work at it more often and lengthen the time, but just sort of a time to give yourself a chance to do it, and get in the studio and do the work. So I think that's the most thing is just try to be. I know sometimes as artists it's hard to be focused and dedicated, but it really does help to get in there and do the work for a specific amount of time. So it's you kind of owe it to yourself, basically. Yeah.
So you're saying like make it a calendar event that you can't back out of, you have to go do.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Esme, we'll go next down to you.
I'll add to that, going to your studio and doing the work. I might have been Robert Genn who said that if you're not there then and your muse shows up, then you'd have lost your chance. So yes, even if it's just small steps that you do to begin something, if you have a little inspiration or make some kind of inspiration, whatever interests you. If you have a query like, gee, I wonder how I can show how that leaf is curling, or I wonder how I can show that that person's grimace is actually kind of funny. You can give in to that thought. Have a piece of paper or a canvas and just draw it. It doesn't even have to be anything grand, just a piece of paper and a pencil or a crayon, and just play with it. And the next thing you know, I think it will become something else, and you'll find that you'll be going to your studio more often. And if you don't have that kind of inspiration, just go to your studio and work.
Interesting. I like that you said if you don't show up to, whether it is your home studio or your studio, if you don't show up and your muse shows up, then it's like, you know, you've just stood somebody up on a date. So I like that you,
Messed
yeah,
up.
yeah. And also, as you were saying, not to focus too much on the finished product, but to just get started and to, you know, write on a piece of paper whatever that thought is, whether it
Yeah.
turns into something else or not. I like that.
Yeah, art is exploration, actually, right? So if you have a question about how can I do that, or what would I like to say, then you go ahead and follow it, and you don't know where it will lead you. I also like to organize shows around things that are happening, events that I would like to say something about, or get people to focus a little bit more attention. So, for example, this was a project that I did at North Van Arts at the Cityscape Gallery. It was an exhibit celebrating women, because there was a lot of violence around that time on women. It hasn't really stopped, but I just wanted to say that maybe we need to think of how we can be part of the solution. Maybe it's the language that we use. It's who is listening when we're talking about women, that could help or destroy the situation or make the situation worse. So those are also like bigger inspirations that you can work from, but always before you get to the big exhibit, you have to start with an idea, and you have to wake it up and see how far it goes.
Hmm.
And also who else you can bring along with that idea.
Well, yes, I
Involving
appreciate
other
that.
artists collaborating.
Mhm. Yeah, I really appreciate that thought that, you know, artists can be a part of so many solutions, and especially when it comes to social issues, that artists are the ones who can help drive that conversation in ways that politicians or historians might not be able to as well. Megan, we'll go to you next.
I had two thoughts. One is to assign importance to this activity, even if that's just for yourself, but especially if you are living with a family and if you have kids, or you know, if you're looking after your husband and your kids, just to think that this is time that I need to dedicate to this, and that it's not something that should just be dropped for whatever other important thing comes up. And I think that's very difficult. And it's also difficult to do that for yourself, never mind for the people around you. So I would say, number one, assign it the importance of a job. Especially if it's not particularly a money-making activity, it's still important, and it still needs to have the time dedicated to it that you need, right? The second thing, if we're talking about advice to other artists, one thing that I've found very useful, especially for someone who's entering into the art scene, for an emerging artist, is to take a class. Because I love this myself. To find an artist you admire, sign up for the class. Now with pandemic, that for me is the best thing about this, is there are so many online classes now with living masters that I would never have had access to otherwise. And then that gives you a sort of discipline, because you have a set time where you participate in this class, and then you often have homework, right? So I find that that was a really useful way, especially when I went into the slump at the beginning of the pandemic, of getting myself back out of it, was the structure imposed by this participation in a class.
That's a wonderful plug for North Van Arts' spring education courses available now.
Sign up.
That's, very good advice, though. That's how I myself got into art, was by taking classes and learning from others. But especially throughout this pandemic, it's important what you say, that there are living masters out there in the world who never before have been able to give you this much access into their techniques and their stories and all that. So yeah, great encouragement for others to go find out as well. And Janice, we'll go next to you.
I would second Megan's advice on taking a class. I would definitely, there's so many online classes, no matter what type of art you do. Just look around, there's so much out there. And I would generally suggest just being a sponge and just, I mean, I do abstract art, so I find that my work is more about the process than the end result. And I find that since I've focused on that and it being about the process, that I'm so much happier with my work, and it's just getting better and better all the time. So I would say remain curious, keep open, don't compare yourself to other artists. That's the worst thing you can do, is when, well, I'm not doing that and I'm not doing that, and I think my work should look like that. Be true to your own work and put the time in, be disciplined about it. And even if you don't feel like painting, or you don't feel like, just do a journal entry or do something on paper. Just do the work, and it'll pay off. You just have to keep at it, keep open.
I was just snapping in, I was agreeing with you that it's a common thing in poetry circles, but might not translate everywhere. So I just want you to know I'm not snapping for time. I'm just like, yeah, I agree. What she said, you know? It's, yeah. But yeah, it is so important not to compare yourself to other artists, as tempting as it can be. Because even if you have the same medium, even if you work in the same studio, you will always have a different work ethic and a different balance that works right for you. And
Exactly.
What I'm hearing from each of you as well is that knowing yourself and investing in yourself to think about those things more and to understand yourself can really help you push your artwork to become better more and more. And Chris, we will finish off with you here.
Okay, well, I'll just quickly agree with the take the class, because there's so much out there right now, and it can really push you up to a different level in a short time. The other things I was thinking of is just try. Now, if you've got an idea for something, even if you think maybe it's not going to work or it's a little bit unconventional, just try it, because maybe it'll work. And if it doesn't, it's still a lesson learned. You see what happened. And then for marketing, I would say I'm not that great at it, but one thing I would say is learn to tell the story of your work. You know, one thing that I remember is selling at the night market down here one year and telling this woman about this bowl that I had, and like, oh yeah, the wood from this came from this tree that was up on this street. And it's like, all of a sudden she was like, oh, I used to live on that street. I have to buy that bowl. So, other than that, it might have been just a bowl for her that she would have hardly looked at a second time. So if you can sort of tell the story behind it, a little bit of the process and all that kind of stuff, it's a little bit of added value that makes it mean more for the person who you might be trying to get to buy it.
Yeah, well, maybe a little, but no criticism to Pottery Barn, but you just can't get those stories when artists are behind the artwork, because like you've all been saying, art is communicating, and the artwork that you create, each piece has such a unique story. So I appreciate what all of you have said about your individual processes and what you've been doing over the last year to get through this pandemic, but also to get past it. And as we look toward vaccinations, I hope we can all meet in person together one day soon, that we will have more art crawls to come, and we will certainly keep on keeping on. So thank you all for joining me tonight. Thank you to everyone on YouTube and in the chat room of our Zoom room as well. And I hope you all have a wonderful night. If you want to learn more about North Van Arts, visit northvanarts.ca and explore the North Shore Art Crawl. And you can see all of these artists and more in there. So we'll see you online, and hope to see you in person one day soon. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.